Zoom my Wanda has graciously agreed to be my co-host this morning, and I'm so grateful for her.
Thank you, Wanda.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. Now they can blame me.
I should have kept that a secret. I'm sorry.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Should have kept it a secret. Too funny. Can you believe that it's almost the end of August?
Absolutely.
That's
It's
crazy.
I haven't enjoyed the summer yet.
Well,
So
winning
go.
for our seniors, we're trying to hold these minutes back because they're going by like super fast. Zoop,
Oh,
zoop,
let
zoop,
me
zoop.
tell you. Yeah, everybody says, "Oh yeah, it's going by fast," but I mean, it really is for us older folks.
I guarantee
My
it.
my wife's looking forward to fall. I'm like, summer ain't over yet. I got 2 more months. I'm like, fall doesn't start till like November.
Mm.
Yeah, that's for
Right, a
sure.
year and a half.
Hey, that
They
sure
got
is
it
a
on East
nice
August. Up
house
north?
you have,
He's in Alabama.
Brian.
Oh, that State Street house.
Oh my goodness.
You want to see it?
Uh, yeah, pull it up. Let us see it real quick.
I'll pull it up. Hold on, give me 1 second. It's
I'm
pretty
trying to
sweet.
get
And
him.
I love the
Trying to get
story with this because
weird.
uh,
Nice guy. Couldn't
who
believe
is
her.
Adam?
Those are
Adam, can you mute?
yes.
Thank you. He's talking real nice about somebody. I hope it was me.
Here you go, Wendy. It's right here.
Okay, you can share it. Let's see.
That's it.
Wow.
So show all the pictures on there.
I'll flip through
So he said
Mm.
Amy has been looking at this house. This is in Jackson,
it.
Mississippi.
So this is right across. This is on North State Street. It's three houses down from a really good coffee shop. It's like right across the street from Millsaps College, and the manship where Walter used to do all his events is about 3 blocks just to the south.
Wow.
But yeah, it's got a huge front porch on it. You can see there's Millsaps College right there.
So, and the hospital's close by then too, right?
Yeah, you can like walk the Baptist is right down the road on the right. And then if you go the other way, UMC is at the intersection of Woodrow Wilson and but it's a great looking house. So
Yeah, but
all these
I was
floors downstairs and most of them up are going to need to get redone. We're getting some of this furniture like these two chairs, maybe this barrel, this big old hutch over here we're going to get. Um, but it's yeah, we're going
I
to redo
was
this
watching
front.
this property for over a
Uh,
year, but his price was high, and I was like, "There's just no way
yeah,
with that price." But
we're going to
it
redo
came
this.
it came down.
It's
We're going to redo that front
beautiful.
door.
That front door is incredible.
The
We're going to redo
porch
it, make it nice. This table comes with it.
the porch is incredible.
Yeah, yeah. Porch is Amy's in love with the porch.
So as I was looking at it, I'm thinking, man, that would make a great wedding venue,
Hmm.
corporate
Well, around the
party.
corner is a what is it called? The Fairview Inn, where a lot of
Yeah.
people do weddings and big events and things like that.
So
So pretty.
we're gonna change this runner. These steps are in pretty good. These caps are pretty good. We're gonna do the upper ones.
So
We're,
that
we're gonna
flowery wallpaper is
we're gonna keep
exactly
it.
what was in my mom's dining room for
Mm.
years.
We're
We're
keeping it.
we're keeping
You
it.
should. Yeah, you
Yeah.
There's
should.
the hallway. You can see like some of the room, the flooring, just these. But my floor guy's like, "Oh, this is a piece of cake, man." He goes, "This is not gonna be hard at all." I'm like, "Okay."
It really is gorgeous. So let's talk numbers real quick and then we need to get started.
Wow.
You're paying how much for it?
310,
And you're gonna put how much into it?
23,
And
Mm.
the ARV is in the 500 range, right?
495 to 550, depending on 140 to 160 a square is what we're gonna get probably in an appraisal.
And you're gonna short-term rent it,
Yep. Cash out refi.
and you're gonna get you think you
Amy,
can rent it for at least 20 days a month?
what's the average daily rate in this house? Like 500 a night, 500,
Between
800?
5 to 800, depending on season and obviously weekends. Obviously, I'm going to put them higher, obviously but we're going to do a 4 night minimum on this. I'm not doing. We have a guy around the corner that does like 2 nights, and I'm like, no way, not doing 2 nights on that thing. Because
Yeah.
people will stay for 4 nights easy if they're coming in for events and
What kind of cleaning
weddings.
fee would you put on that? A house that size? It's
Probably
what,
about 800.
and it's 4,000 square feet,
3,500.
3,500. Very nice.
It'll be we'll make it a 5-3.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. All right.
Amazing.
Thank you for sharing that. That was
All
really
right.
cool.
And with
Good
that,
morning, folks. We are glad to have you at Sunrisers this morning, running a little bit late because we were just admiring a win that Brian and Amy just came up with in Jackson,
Absolutely.
Mississippi. Tom, are you ready to get started, my dear friend?
Is this meeting sponsored by Brian and Amy
That's right.
on their Airbnb this morning?
That's right. That's exactly right. If you
this
can
this
mute
this meeting
yourself,
is sponsored by Jesus. Amen.
that's right.
Okay.
If everyone could mute themselves, that'd be great. Looks like most people are. Anyway, thank you so much. Welcome.
Well, as always, good morning, guys. And I wanted to do this lesson this morning from the book of Ecclesiastes because I was reading a story, this week about how a young lady may not have made the best decision in her young life, and how now she's trying to reverse and get things back. So I want to share a story with you. There was a young man who had one goal. He wanted to make something of himself. He wanted money. He wanted success. He wanted people to respect him. He told himself, he said, when I get where I want to be, then I have time for God. When I get established, then I'll think about the important things. So he worked very hard. He built his career. He bought nice things. He traveled. He became successful. But along the way, he made choices that cost him something. He missed church because there was always something else to do. He spent less time with his family because work came first. He neglected friendships that could have encouraged him spiritually. He kept putting off the things he knew mattered the most. And every time his conscience bothered him, he would say, I'll get serious about God someday. Then one day he looked in the mirror and realized that someday had now become old age. His children were grown. Some of his closest friends were gone. His career was behind him. Many of the things he had worked so hard to obtain no longer had any importance. He had money, but he could not buy back the years. Ecclesiastes is a story of a man who spent much of his life searching for what really mattered. Solomon had almost everything a person could want. He had wisdom, wealth, power, possessions, accomplishments, pleasures, and influence. He experienced things that most of us will never experience. And after all of that, he comes to the end of the book and he says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Think about that. After everything Solomon experienced, he doesn't tell us, hey, make more money, become more successful, enjoy more pleasures, acquire more possessions. This is what he says. Fear God and keep his commandments. Solomon, he finally discovered that the things the world tells us are the most important are not necessarily the things that matter most when life is over. When Solomon says fear God, he isn't simply telling us to be afraid of God. The fear of God means reverence. It means recognizing that God is God and we are not. God is our creator. We are his creation. He knows what we don't know. He sees what we cannot see. He knows the beginning, but he also knows the end. And therefore, the fear of God means I trust his wisdom more than my own. In Proverbs 1:7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Our culture, our society tells us, follow your heart. God says, follow me. Our culture says, do whatever makes you happy. God says, trust me. I know what is best. That's the beginning of wisdom. Keep his commandments. Fear must produce obedience. Solomon doesn't just say fear God, he says fear God and keep his commandments. True reverence for God produces obedience. Jesus says in John 14:15, he said, if you love me, keep my commandments. Christianity isn't merely believing certain things. It is allowing what we believe about God to change the way we live. If I fear God, it should impact my marriage. It should impact my business. It affects how I treat people. It affects what I do when no one is watching. It affects what I do with my money. It affects my words, my decisions, and my priorities. Why would the fear of God, why would the reverence of God do that? Because I understand, and we should all understand, that God, our God, is always watching. And we should want our life to honor him. The world shows us the beginning, but God shows us the end. This connects with something we were discussing earlier. There are lifestyles that can look extremely attractive when you're young. They promise money, freedom, pleasure, attention, fame, excitement. The problem is that temptation usually shows the beginning of the story, not the ending. I used to tell my kids when they were growing up and you saw these beer commercials, and I said, everyone is slim and trim. No one is overweight. They're attractive actors and actresses. And I said, you see how with the beer commercials, everyone is happy. Everyone is the right size and everything else. But I said, it doesn't show you alcoholism. It doesn't show you poverty. It doesn't show you marriages being broken up. It just gives you a small picture that you see that when you think you have this Budweiser in your hand, all of these great things are happening. But I said, that's not the whole story. That's just the first part of it. So that's how life is. It shows us attention. It gives us fame. It talks about excitement. But the problem is that temptation usually is, again, only the beginning of the story. They don't necessarily see the consequences. We see the money, but we don't see that it may cost what it may cost you later. The excitement, but we don't see the damage. That's true about pornography, about drugs, sexual immorality, gambling, dishonesty, materialism, and many other things. The Bible asks us to look farther down the road. Proverbs 14:12. This is what the writer says. He said, there is a way that seemeth right unto man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. There is a way which seemeth right. It looks like it's right. But the scriptures say, but the end of it is death. Notice the phrase again, seemeth right. That makes temptation dangerous. It doesn't always look bad at the beginning. But God sees the end when we only can see the beginning. That's why his commandment matters. God isn't trying to keep us from enjoying life. He's trying to keep us from destroying our life. Solomon learned that life is temporary. He said Ecclesiastes 12 brings us to reality of aging and death. Solomon says, then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gives it. That's not a very popular message today. We spend an enormous amount of time to preserve our bodies, our possessions, and our lifestyle. But eventually, every one of us will face the same reality, that life our life is just temporary. The question isn't whether we're going to die. The question is, what are we doing with the time that God has given us? That's why Solomon says, remember now thy creator in the days of thy youth. Don't wait until the end of life to discover what really matters. Don't spend 40 years chasing something only to discover at 60 that it wasn't worth chasing. Don't sacrifice your family for success and then spend your later years wishing you had your family back. Don't sacrifice your relationship with God for things that cannot last. Learn the lesson before you have to learn it through regret. God will always have the final word. Then Solomon gives us verse 14. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret things, whether it be good or whether it was for evil. That's why we should fear God, because ultimately God has the final word. People may not know everything about us. Our friends don't know everything. Our family doesn't know everything. Our church family doesn't know everything. But friends, brothers and sisters, God does. He sees what happens in public, but he also sees what happens in private. He sees our actions. He sees our motives. He sees our sacrifices, our failures. Nothing is hidden from God. That can be frightening, but it can also be comforting, because God always sees the things nobody else will see. He sees the parents who sacrifice for his children. He sees the husband or wife who remains faithful. He sees the Christian who quietly serves. He sees the person who chooses integrity when dishonesty could be profitable. God sees it all. And one day God will bring every work into judgment. What really matters at the end? When you're young, we tend to think about what we want to get out of life. As we get older, we begin thinking more about what we want our life to have meant. There's a difference, an important difference. At some point, the question changes from how much can I get to what did I do with what God had given me? The question becomes, did I love my family? Did I love my integrity? Did I serve others? Did I use what God gave me wisely? Did I make a difference? Most importantly, did I honor God with my life? That's what Solomon is telling us about. Jesus showed us how to live. Jesus is a perfect example. Jesus didn't come to earth to accumulate possessions and to build a comfortable life. He came to do the Father's will. John 6:38 says, for I came down from heaven not to do mine own will, but the will of him that sent me. And what did that show in Jesus' life? Jesus served, Jesus loved, Jesus forgave, Jesus sacrificed. And when he reached the end of his earthly ministry, he said, it is finished. What a way to finish a life. He had completed what the Father had given him to do. That should be the goal of every Christian. Not simply I had a good life, but I was faithful with the life God gave me. Solomon has examined life from almost every direction. And finally, he says, fear God and keep his commandments. He said, that's the conclusion. It's not the money, not possessions, not fame, not pleasure, not success. These things may have their place, but they are not the foundation of our life. God is the foundation of our life. So the question I would ask this morning is, what kind of life are you building? Because someday the building stops, the money stops, the career stops, the possessions stop, our time on earth stops, and we stand before God. When that day comes, what will matter? Not how much we accumulated, not how many people knew our name, not how successfully we appeared. What will matter is, did we fear God? Did we keep his commandments? Were we faithful? Paul said in 2 Timothy 4:7, he said, I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. That's the kind of conclusion I should want, and all of us should want for our lives. And I hope that this conclusion is what we want at this moment. Don't wait until the end of life to discover what matters. Today, fear God. Obey him today. Serve him today. Live faithfully now. Because Solomon has already given us the answer. He said, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. To fear God and keep his commandments. And, you know, if you could take a 75-year-old person who could go back in time and talk with themselves when they were 25, I wonder what the story they would share and what they would tell. Because now they're at a point where they're looking back. They realize that the hill that they were climbing is endless. The things that they were trying to accumulate can never be enough. It doesn't feel anything. It doesn't feel a spirit in your heart. It doesn't give you satisfaction. Only God and his grace gives us satisfaction. It gives us peace. And that's what the scripture says, that God gives us a peace that passes all understanding. And in our world, we many times try to find this peace in possessions and fame, and find out once we have that it's never enough and it doesn't last at all. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, your word is true. And when Solomon was speaking, Father, he spoke from a position that he had it all. Anything he saw, he said he did not withhold from his eyes. He was a person of magnificent wisdom and grace and intelligence, but yet he, Father, at the very close of his life, admitted that fearing God, being reverent to you, is greater than all the possessions that he has. And so, Father, we pray that his story becomes our story, and that we can seek ye first the kingdom of God and all of the righteousness with it, and that you, Father, you will add anything that's lacking. So we raise you up and we praise you this morning in your precious son's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. You know, I asked a question and I knew Tony would be the one answering it, and he's so wise. So my question is, why do I feel like whatever I do is never going to be enough? And how do I, when I'm doing things for the Lord because I love him, how do I make sure that there's such a thin line between works and doing truly what you just desire for the Lord? You just want to do more, more, more. How do you keep that from getting mixed up?
That's a question you're asking, Wendy?
Yeah.
Well, surely you don't expect an answer, do you?
I'm not the only one that feels that way. Is that right? I'm hoping.
I think we all are all are there. I mean, the time that goes around. I said, here I got a little small hour, 5-minute glass in my office, and I said I turn it upside down and see the sands going through the small end of it, and it's gone. You know, a few minutes, and you have to turn it back over, and that's how life can be. It's that we many times are doing the same thing. You know what they say about stupidity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. And the life of getting the capitalism that we live in, you know, is very addictive about the things that we have and we show, and it shows prominence, it shows maybe intellect and all of that. But God doesn't require any of that, you know, to be his servant. We think about what we can do in capitalism, and yet you have someone who dedicates their whole life to mission work, and they go to these third world countries and live in poverty to spread the gospel of God. We look at that and said, oh, bless you. I'll send you something. I want to support your work there. But very few, not me, says, I want to trade places with you. I want to go where you are, do what you do, and show Jesus in my life as you demonstrated it to people who may have never heard about him at all. Those are the decisions. Those are the things that we face in life. And as Solomon was seeing that as life was getting close to an end, you know, do we look back with regret as to, God, I can't take any of these things I have with me, and where I want to be with you, do I have treasures that I have already sent before me? And that's the question: is are we sending treasures before we go?
Yeah, that's amazing. So, I got to tell you this too. I love what Amy says on here is, what is she saying? She talks about, it kind of goes back to the way we were raised, and sometimes we can get ourselves mixed up with the Mary and Martha thing where, you know, Martha was so busy, you know, at work doing stuff. I find I'm such a Martha sometimes. And that pops in my head. I got to back off from this and stop being Martha because I'm missing the good stuff. Because then when I'm Martha, I'm sitting there getting all mad because I'm the only Martha, you know? You know, I love too what you said about what would my 75-year-old self say to my 25-year-old self?
Correct.
I'm
Yeah.
sitting here. I just had my eldest son just got engaged. So now all three of them are going to be married off. Woo-hoo.
Oh my goodness.
Set a date for January 1st. So guess what I'm doing New Year's? And I see all three of my kids and their spouses or significant others like sweat the small stuff. When I look back now at my age and the length that I've been married, it's so worthless to do that. And you can't tell them that. Like you can say it, but they don't hear it. It's not
Yeah.
worth. Why do we do that?
I think it's the bells and whistles, and it's the attractiveness of life. And I got two grandkids, and Zoe, when we're doing something, she said, "I can do this all by myself. I can." And so kids have that individualism that they have, and they're stars, and the things that they see, they want to pursue it. I think we as parents and as believers, we just have to show them that this glitter is not gold. It's not lasting. It's not everlasting. And just to get to the heart of the matter about, like, as Solomon says, fear God, respect God, because you may never live to see old age. You may be building something, and as we said before, you go to these countries where they're building these mausoleums and things for centuries. And so the architect and the builders and the contractors and all that, they don't live long enough to see the finished product. They may work for 40 or 50, 60 years on it, and they're gone and someone else replaces them. They never see the finished product. We in this country, we couldn't live if we had something that would take 40 or 50 years. It has to be instant. It has to be something you can put it in 5 or 6 months or a year. And so we don't have that longevity in our minds about how things are. And so we kind of live a microwave type life. We want it all, but we want it all now. We want it today, not tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
this is a great topic. In that verse, Second Timothy 4:7, I have run my race, right? I have fought. We all have a race, but I think now, especially since our kids are out of the house, married, now we have grandkids. I think, generally, like we had Dealmaker last night, and so many people came up, and they're so thankful, so thankful. And I sit there, and someone said, "Why do you do this?" And I said, I said, we don't, he goes, you don't promote yourself. You don't, I said, well, it's not about me. I said, we do this because somebody, in this case, we knew who started Dealmaker, Jim Ingersoll, took the time to serve others and
mhm,
leave others better than he found them when they
mm,
came to him. And so when I look at this Dealmaker community here in Jackson, like this is way bigger than Amy and I. This is about, and that's just one attribute, but I think in general, like our job, right? We want to raise good citizens. We want to raise godly young men and women because only at the end we're going to realize that all this other stuff doesn't matter. But how you left people, how you found people, and like I get ticked off on easy things. We talked about this the other day in men's roundtable. Why do we let little things bother us, right? Why? We do that all the time. We're all a work in progress, but I think l- leaving people better and focusing on, leaving people better, but just why you do the things you do. I think of like Tom Olson and I think they're going through up there and all the stuff that he does. He puts himself out there, Jim and Wendy, all these opportunities we have to leave people better. I mean, I think that's really what it's about is leaving people better. Like if someone comes across your path, I used to say when I coached, I never want a kid to quit playing football or baseball because of Brian Biernack, because he was a stupid, overzealous
mhm,
coach. No, I want him to say, you know what, coach, he didn't win a lot, or maybe he did, but he taught me the game. But more importantly, he taught me some life lessons. And
mm.
you look back and you never want to be the reason someone quits. You never want to be the reason someone, and you can't please everybody. I get it, but I guess in general, I sum up this passage: when we're running our race, leave people better than you found them.
Good. That's good. Just like an Airbnb, leave it cleaner than when you got there.
Amen.
Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for everybody's input on that. This is good stuff. Um, I'm just going to say this. I just put somebody in the waiting room with the name of Sin Heart. I don't know if any of you know who that is, but I'm going to leave them there till I figure that out because it um, doesn't sound right. But anyway, just want to let y'all know that. If y'all know who it is, let me know. All right. Brian Maddox, my friend.
Good morning, Wendy. How are you?
Oh my goodness. Is that water behind you?
No, I just put like a textured background.
Uh, I
Not
thought
a,
there was some kind of big giant
no,
oceanic view. I'm thinking,
no, no. I did go to St. Augustine this week. I had a meeting, and it's you can't fly there from Charlotte easily, right? You're probably going into Jacksonville. So I drove down Tuesday and I drove back on Thursday. But if I'd have flown, it'd have taken about the same 7 hours to get where I was going. So I was like,
that's the
man,
truth.
and then I could be on the phone all the whole time. So
That's right.
It rained a little bit when I was in St. Augustine, but I was inside, so I can't tell you that the water was great. What are you gonna do? I have a bunch of news, and I couldn't really because I was driving yesterday, so I couldn't get to everything I wanted to get to today. So it's going to be a really quick, brief market update, but some big headline news. First, I want you to notice this is the oil chart, one of the oil charts. There's several different ways to look at oil prices. But if you look at this, July 27th, we saw rates and mortgages are all tied to oil. So it's leading my words. But we saw oil price decline right into the beginning of August. And that was kind of some good news. I was feeling good and thinking, okay, maybe we can find some kind of resolution. Well, that resolution has kind of evaporated. We're just not seeing any forward progress here with this Iran. And so we've got oil going back up, right, since August 5th. And I want you to notice some charts. So this is the UMBS 30-year coupon. So this is the actual bond that trades on Wall Street. And all of July, things were getting bad, right? On this chart, down means more expensive rates. So July 27th to August 5th, we started seeing things go up, right? So we have this positive trend. That's when oil prices were going down, mortgage rates were getting better. Well, then after that, we saw oil starting to get worse, and mortgages have been kind of on this downward slide to match. But these have been some really, really big jumps. We don't normally see this much market movement. And it's been, one of those days or weeks that if you could lock at the right moment of time, you were doing okay, because the rates, we've gotten repricing throughout the day several times as the markets have kind of shifted. So we don't have today's numbers out yet, but we want to stay above this orange line here. This is the 25-day moving average, and it's a tough one. It's a tough cookie to crack. And if we're on the bottom side of this, it's putting more pressure for mortgage rates to get worse. We want to stay on the top side of this. And we've got this, these big channels that we've been trading in. And there is some chance that the jobs markets, and I didn't pull up jobs numbers today because there's nothing exciting to report this week, but the weakness in the jobs reports and the softening of inflation, it is giving us a chance to see if we can kind of press back up over and stay ahead of this 25-day moving average. And it'd be great just to get a little bit longer relief in the mortgage rates. When we look at the 10-year Treasury, we've had the same squeeze, right? We were kind of in between these two white lines. These are Fibonacci levels. And then the 25-day moving average started to creep up, and it's gotten this narrow chart. It's squeezing. And the fear is that we jump up on the top side of these Fibonacci levels, and that lets rates really start to get higher. And we're flirting with that 25-day moving average. On this chart, up means more expensive rates. This is the 10-year Treasury chart. So, it's not been really, really pretty. Since July 27th, we thought, okay, maybe things will start getting better down to the August 5th. And then again, we've got this kind of upward trend line. They've been mostly flat though. That's the good news. Oil markets have been ugly and not helping us, but the inflation and the jobs data recently has been helping us. So we've got a Fed meeting coming up here in less than a month. 65% chance we're going to stay where we're at. October is now 52% chance we're going to stay where we're at. December, we're still heading towards a rate hike as of today. These numbers do change, and the farther out we look, they're less and less predictable. But there's a 3% chance, only a 33% chance we're going to stay where we're at. There's a decent chance of a quarter-point hike and a little bit of a chance of a half or a 3/4 point hike. This is not all that large. I don't think we need to worry about that huge of a move. When we look at mortgage rates across the board, most of them got a little bit worse in this last week, and these are just edging up a tiny bit. So your cash out refinances, they all got just a little bit more expensive. Rate and term, we've got one lender that's sticking true to where we were last week, 6.5% on an owner occupied. That's this top box. Investment home, we're right at 7%. And then DSCR, 70%. We're up a little bit, but this is still, you can get DSCR loan with a 5-year prepayment penalty cheaper than an owner occupied rate. This is still a crazy time. When we look at purchases, Wendy, I've never seen this, right? We're lower on a 30-year fixed rate 20% down DSCR with a 5-year prepayment penalty than we are on an owner-occupied 20% down property. I've only got one lender right now that is running this rate. So a lot of times lenders, they want to control their pipeline. They want to control their activity. And, one reason that I shop a whole bunch of lenders is, lenders, when they get busy, if they go above 85, 90% of their capacity, they're in the red line. They're working hard. They can flex up into that space, but they can't stay there long term. Think of redlining your car. You can touch that red line, but you don't want your engine in that red line all the time. So when they get real busy, one of the main throttles that they can control is their interest rates. So they will raise their rates to slow down. And then, when lenders get too slow, they drop below 80% of their capacity. And then they got to start thinking about laying people off. So what they do is they buy some market share. They lower their interest rates. And so when we shop, sometimes I've got a client and I'll do 2 or 3 mortgages for the same person. And inside the same week, I might go to 2 or 3 different lenders if we didn't start all those loans at the same time, because it's never the same lender that's the best rate of the day. So this wasn't, and I say all that because I want you to understand that rates do change lender by lender, not only market conditions. Sometimes they're a little busy and they gotta slow down, or they're a little slow and they're trying to buy market share. So I only had one lender that was running a promotion this week. Everybody else was at 6.625. Not everybody else. A bunch of other lenders were at 6.625. But sometimes you can get a little diamond in the rough there. And I just thought I didn't have a lot of other content. So I wanted to explain why rates change between lenders and why we're going to go shop every time we're placing a loan. Fannie Mae did not give us good news this week. They revised their mortgage forecast. So at the beginning of the year, Fannie Mae said rates are going to stay around 6% for the rest of the year. And then we got some, bad news about Iran. And we had to adjust our outlooks. And Fannie Mae had adjusted their outlook to go up to be, okay, we're going to get 6.4% for the rest of 2026. And then maybe we'll come in a little bit softer in 27. Well, they've just revised this, and they think that mortgage rates now will be in the high 6s or upper 6s, 6.7% through the second half of 2027. So that their 6% forecast, it just got changed because of global economic issues. And they're predicting, this article does say it. They're predicting that we could get up to 6.8% in the fourth quarter. So I was on the one rental at a time podcast, and he's been talking a lot recently about, we're going to see 7% rates. We're going to see 7% rates. We're going to see them. And I think Fannie Mae listened to him because he's been saying this for weeks now. And now they're revising up that we actually could get up close to that 7% mark. So all of this means if you've got a deal, lock it in, right? If you've got to get some money out, rates might not get any better. They might get worse. The forecast is not looking pretty for where rates will go. I've seen some charts that suggest maybe in 2028, we see things starting to pull back. I couldn't find any really good charts to show you right now. And a lot of this data is, it's moving pretty rapidly with, the conflicting jobs, inflation, and oil prices. July, we saw rates get worse all July. And the National Association of Realtors put out their July report. Month over month, July, we saw a 2.3% decrease in pending home sales and declines in all regions. And then year over year, we were 2.2% decrease in pending home sales, gains in the Midwest, declines in the Northeast, South, and the West. So this kind of makes sense a little bit. This is our busy summer season. We don't want to see it decline, but rates got worse all of July, and that's going to affect people's desire to go out. It's going to make some people, if they got pre-qualified earlier in the month and rates got worse, sometimes they just can't qualify for as much debt as they wanted to. And so this is showing application volume. Also, mortgage rates are basically flat, stuck at 6.77%. And purchase applications were down 2% for the week, 3% year over year. Refi apps were up 2%, but down 18% year over year. And then it showed some average refi stuff. And then I just thought, for this group, it'd be interesting to see, and I couldn't go find enough charts to support any more data around this, but homeownership rates slipped to 65% as affordability stays near decade lows, right? People are having a hard time qualifying. I believe the average first-time home buyer right now is 37, but I couldn't find really good recent data to show that. So I don't have a chart to show you, but young buyers are falling the furthest behind. Homeownership for those under 35 dropped 1.2% year over year to 35.2% of home buyers under 35%. It's only 35% of those humans are homeowners. They're hit hard by the rates and the shorter starter homes, right? Like we're not building starter homes. Our first homes now from home builders are most people's second homes. If we think back to what we were buying as first homes, they're just not producing those much. This is an area where flippers can go create inventory, right? They can create move-in ready inventory, and they're not seeing the glutton of new builds in that market space. But that market still is slow, right? And I think we talked about that last week, Wendy, that the $300,000, the $250,000 homes, sometimes they move fast, but sometimes they sit and they sit longer than people were anticipating. 45 to 54 was the only group to see an increase, and total households grew to 133.8 million, both homeowners and renters adding households. So we're not having people move out and not have access to homes. So I've got some other presentation pieces that I'm gonna start doing, kind of like an educational piece. I couldn't get it ready, but I'm gonna do like a 4-part series to kind of just show some differences between DSCR loans and conventional loans. So I want to start doing just a little educational piece to show you some of the flexibility that DSCR lending now brings. And Wendy, I don't know if you know this or not, but in 2020 there was probably only about 30 really good DSCR lenders in 2020, and now we have hundreds of lenders that are doing DSCR loans. And not every week, but every month, I've got a new lender that we work with that's launching their DSCR platform. And it's exciting times for investors. These tools 10 years ago were very difficult to get access to, right? But it has so created an opportunity for real estate investors. Rates might be edging on the higher side, but access to capital is easy right now in the 1 to 4 family space.
And the timing could not be more perfect because, and I see that Anna Kelly is back from her round the world trip. I'm hoping she'll be able to put in her 2 cents as well. But everything you're saying is, I'm blown away by how badly, or I should say, how much all of this affects the under 500 purchases, especially under 300. That's always been a market where you could buy a house where the ARV is 300, fix it up, put it on the market, boom, it's gone. You are sitting in that property. You are sitting in that property. And then you have to be really careful between like 400,000 and 600,000 with your ARV, because you can't really rent it for what your mortgage payment's it's not really going to qualify for DSCR, and it's also in that price range that's going to sit on the market. Over 600 seems to be selling because those people aren't as badly affected by the economy and all the things that are going on.
And they might have equity from the house that they're selling, right? Like a lot of those buyers, they're moving up, they're moving out, they're moving over, they're downsizing, they're upsizing, but they're coming from equity, which allows them a little more flexibility and affordability.
If they can sell their house.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's the thing. So that's really good. I'm glad you're doing that, Brian. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anna, are you able to talk?
Yeah, I'm just sitting in the car at a soccer practice.
Awesome. And look at how gorgeous you look. I can tell you've been on vacation.
I had a great time in Europe. So sorry I missed, but I was having fun on a different time zone. So
well, it looked like you were for sure. So what are your thoughts? I know you're in the commercial space. I know you've been trying to get more into the single family because the commercials kind of pooped out a little bit. But what are your thoughts on how all of this is affecting us? Because that's really the market for most people, is the under 500, us fix and flip people. And now in the buy and hold, being able to make sure you're going to DSCR at low enough to qualify.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is this is one of the hardest markets I've ever seen in close to 30 years of investing, for both trying to find rental properties that cash flow, because of where interest rates are, and really because of the lock-in effect. So I don't think it would be as bad as it kind of is. And of course, there's always exception markets that are different, than the general national averages. But in general, prices are still somewhat elevated because people have that lock-in effect. There's so many people that have mortgages sub 4, sub 5, that for them to sell a house, and most of the people looking for fix and flips, it's owner occupied homes that are selling them. They've got such a low rate and low payment, they can't rent a comparable house for less than their mortgage payment, much less trade in or trade up to something else when the interest rates are in a lot of cases double what they're sitting on. And so I think until long-term rates start to come down, and it remains to be seen how long that may be, especially with this war going on, you're going to have that lock-in effect take years to really start unlocking and see a big change. So I don't think it's like interest rates drop a little and suddenly you're going to have this massive amount of supply. The supply is going to trickle in as older people are forced to sell, or as the economy weakens further. If the job market starts to really weaken and people start losing jobs, they'll put their house on the market and they'll become more motivated. And so I think the way out of, just as a big picture, the way out of this kind of stagflationary environment, which I've been warning about, is like, okay, you've got high rates and you've got weakening underlying unemployment and employment. I mean, the unemployment rate has fallen a little bit, but labor participation has gone down significantly. So they're not really tracking all of the unemployed, or that number would be much higher. But the job market is tightening and weakening, and it has been for some time. And so on the other side of seeing these rates really go up, you're starting to see, everybody thought for sure there's going to be a rate increase in September. But now the job market is coming in weaker than expected, and consumer sentiment's coming in weaker. There's a lot of people talking about all the recessionary signs as well. And the only way out of this stagflation-like environment is we have a deep recession that causes, prices to fall and the Fed to start cutting rates in order to ease a weakening economy. But while you have war going on and escalation of that war at the same time, that's part of the bond vigilantes. It's not just the government debt has hit that 40 trillion number or whatever it is, but it's the war is escalating and oil prices are going to continue to be volatile. And that means the government has to print more money in order to support the war. And so, the bond vigilantes are back with a vengeance, which is why Bessent is trying to buy a bunch of bonds to increase the demand to lower those rates a little bit from where they'll be. And so all these things take time, and I don't think it's going to change a lot in the near term. And we just have to be patient, and you've got to find those deals that are truly a needle in a haystack, or like Brian and Amy talked about before. I joined a little bit late in their deal that they got, but you've got to find motivated sellers that are dropping their prices. Everyone that I know in the big fix and flip game is just about getting out of the big fix and flip game, and they're going to much smaller priced homes in what we would say not as nice markets as they would have flipped before, trying to find some first-time home buyers, but they're not flipping a lot. And the only people that are finding really, really motivated sellers are buying short-term rentals that aren't cash flowing anymore, and they're finally getting desperate enough to really drop their prices. And so, you got to shift your strategy a little bit and look for markets that have motivated sellers, and that low end range. And if you've got a lot of patience and a lot of money and time, then those higher end properties, are still selling. If that's something that you can afford to take down, because people don't need a mortgage. I've got a big offer on a big property we have on the market, and it's cash buyers that can afford, to pay the $1 million plus without going to the bank. And so this is really a patience game. And, I have not bought, full disclosure, I haven't bought anything in 2 years, Wendy. I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm looking, And I look, but I'm a very, very patient investor. And thankfully, I'm at a point in my life where I'm in asset preservation mode more so than I've got to accumulate just because I'm used to accumulating. I've been in a preserve what I've got, refinance and restructure lots of stuff. And if I find a deal where they're motivated sellers enough that I really want that property at today's rates, I'll buy it. But I personally haven't found anything in my buy box, Wendy, for 2 full years. And it's the first time in my investing life that I have not bought a property in 2 years. And so I've become comfortable finally with being uncomfortable with staying still until I find something good enough that meets my goals and that's rewarding me for the risk that I'm taking to buy that deal. And I think that's something, just a hopefully important message for people to be patient, and only do really, really good deals. And whatever rate it is, as long as you're getting it at a good price, a good basis, the rate doesn't matter as much. Lock in the rate, get the deal done, and make sure that it cash flows if you're a cash flow investor with today's rates, or you just don't buy it if you can't get it priced right.
Good point. Good point. I just found a deal yesterday. It's a mobile home on land that I'm going to take over subject to,
Yeah.
and it'll cash flow $600 a month. But it's little things like little singles like that
Yes.
that I'm only comfortable doing.
Yeah.
It's really, it's very interesting, and I love that you talk about being patient. Because the got to get it done is the one thing that's going to put us all out of business.
Yeah. For sure. And it's hard because you start to question, like, I teach on this stuff. Like, can't I find a deal? And it's like, yeah, but am I doing deals just to do deals, just to feel good or be able to say that I did something? Or am I doing something because it really fits my plan and my financial goals? And sometimes there are markets that just don't give you what you really need to move the needle forward with wisdom, yeah, and make it worth what your goals are. And so you've either got to shift to, shift your financial plan and do deals that aren't your number one goal. Like I always talk about, when I was in private banking, we would say everything you do at some point in your life needs to be one of 3 goals. You're either looking for more income, more appreciation and growth for the long term, or asset preservation. And so you really have to know what is your number one financial goal. And if it's cash flow and you can't find cash flow, then you might find something that you're getting a great deal on. It's not cash flowing at today's, rates, but at least you're hitting your number 2 bucket, which is appreciation over the long term. And so if you're not doing a deal that meets your number 1 and your number 2 of those, you really shouldn't be doing anything, for number 3. Like if you're still in wealth and accumulation, you don't want to do asset preservation goals. My number 1 is asset preservation. So it's easier for me in my phase to say, I don't have to do a deal that doesn't cash flow or that I don't think has appreciation. Because if it doesn't have those 2 and it's going to reduce my cash that's helping me preserve what I've got, it's just not a sexy enough deal for me to do. So know your goals and then only do deals that actually meet that number 1 or number 2. Don't chase deals just to do deals, because those are the deals that people end up regret doing because they think, oh, it's just going to not cash flow for a couple months and then rates are going to fall and then it's going to be great. Well, it might not be. I'm learning in real time. The economist Lacey Hunt talks about long and variable lags. And when you're in this kind of shift of a cycle, it's a long and variable lag. It doesn't happen overnight. And, we're seeing very stagnating type economy, really unexpected volatility, uncertain, that's lasted a couple years now. So we all start to get impatient. And this is when I think patience is truly a virtue, and people will win playing the long game, sticking to your buy box, being prayerful, having wisdom with what you buy, and networking, and then thinking it creatively. How can I make a deal that doesn't look like a deal on paper? And I'll just throw this one thing out there. My son was looking at property. So he's been looking for a rental property. He's 23. And we had a few that we wanted to sell really just because we want to get more liquid, to be able to take down bigger stuff. And so he approached us and said, do you have any properties that you want to sell? Because I had put out on Facebook that I was willing to sell some. And he said, I don't want you to give it to me. I want to earn it and I want to do it the right way. But would you sell to me on owner financing since you're willing to sell to other people on owner financing? And I said, sure. So we worked out a win-win where I sold the property to my son, and I did not give him a very great deal off the property. I sold it for about $10,000 less than what it was worth, but I owner financed it for him. And so we set it up at a market interest rate, but I did interest only payments. And so now I'm the lender. He's bought his property. He's cash flowing really well because it's interest only. And so even though it's, mom to son, you can do that with friends, local investors, and work out win-win deals that really work that way. So there's still ways to do deals to people that want to sell, but they don't want to come off on their price, but they might want to be the lender. So that's something, just to think about too.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. And good for you for not giving him a big discount, because that's hard for a mama not to do.
I know. Well, I told him, I said, Lord willing, I live another, 30 or 40 years, and one day y'all will inherit stuff. But I was proud of him that he said, I want to earn it. I don't want to feel like you just gave it to me. So, I helped him structure it in a way that he'd learn and be able to repeat it, later in the future.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Tom Olson is unmuted. Tom, did you want to pipe in here?
If you want me to, hey, I'm always willing to share if I can. I love what you're saying, Anna. I feel like this market separates the boys from the men, so to speak, or the women from the girls, so to speak. I think one thing everybody should probably ask themselves, in addition to what's already been said, and this is something that we've tried to do in our businesses, is what skills do I have now, or what have I learned in my real estate business that I may be able to do something different? So for example, now I know for me, this is different than from everybody else, but me, I grew up in construction. And I'll be honest with you, have you guys seen what the contractors are charging lately? Have you seen what their margins are, guys? If there's something so honestly, the last 2 or 3 quarters, we have leaned into building our construction company back up again, more so than building our flipping business, because I think inflation's helped that. The cost of everything has gone up. So everybody's accepting now these higher prices from the contractors, and their margins, guys, go look at their trucks that they're driving around, and then go look at your vehicles. I'm telling you, they're making more money than you guys are. And as a flipper, we're literally just glorified contractors if we know what we're doing well, because you can buy a really great deal, screw up the rehab, and lose a bunch of money, right? Right, Wendy? So something that Brian said I thought was really good too. And you glazed over it, but I was like, oh, yes, Brian. The Midwest is actually seeing gains right now. So I've felt that this year. I was screaming for the last 2 years. We're in a recession. We're in a recession here in the Midwest. And now we're seeing houses sit on the market shorter period of time in the Midwest than we did the last 2 years. So now with our lending business, the loans that we're doing in Virginia, the loans that we're doing in North Carolina, those ones are sitting way, way longer than the loans that we're doing in Indiana. So it is this, a lot of this is also very, very local. So please pay attention to what's going on in your local, your local numbers matter way more so in a market like this than they do when everything's going good. So as far as the markets are concerned and what you guys are talking about now, I think that's where, I guess that's my 2 cents, Wendy. Hopefully that helps.
It's a good 2 cents. And while you're talking, let's pop into what the topic should have been in the first place. It's kind of hard to, I try to let it just roll with where we are. and this has been really, really good. So I've noticed on your Facebook pages posts of damages from storms. And I suffered a hurricane a few years back. I've had flood damages. I've had all kinds of stuff. We had a hailstorm come through Rock Hill, and I had to get roofs on 6 houses and our office building. Office building one was $260,000. And thank God our insurance paid
I'm like,
that.
hopefully insurance cover that.
Yeah, it's a slate roof. But anyway, um, it's interesting, and I saw Tyler McCracken. I don't think he's on here, but he had a tree fall right down the middle of one of his houses, split it in two, had to completely to tear down the house. But, how do you, people don't understand insurance and how it works. And especially with public adjusters out there that because people just take, okay, you'll give me 10,000, thank you, instead of understanding you can fight all of that. So first of all, how do you handle that? Who do you call first? What kind of insurance are you putting into place? How's it affecting your business?
Those are a lot of questions there, Wendy.
Answer all of them.
Okay. So let me uh I I I didn't know you were going quite in that direction. So let me just kind of back up here. So yes, we have had basically a hurricane in Northwest Indiana. I don't know how that's possible, but we had 120-mile-an-hour shelf winds. They call it a derecho. I never even knew that something like a derecho existed. We had up to 500,000 people out of power at one point in time. Our house, that where I live, actually just got power last night after 10 days, and there's still about 70 or 80,000 people without power 10 days later. The crews that came in, we had crews all from all over the country, including Florida. Some of the people from Florida said this is worse than a hurricane in some capacity. Now, we didn't have the flooding, we didn't have all of the water damage that you typically get from a hurricane, but the winds were just massive. To put this into perspective, NIPSCO, our electric company, had to order 700 utility poles. And I mean, it's just that much power, and there's thousands and thousands of trees down. We manage about 600 doors, and I think we've got 5 or 6 houses that are completely demolished, like trees right through the middle, like you just explained. I wrote a story on my Facebook page about one house in particular, and it had a block walls, which we don't have a lot of up there. You guys have a lot in Florida down here because I'm in Florida right now. But not a lot of block walls up there. And the family was in the home when the tree hit the ceiling, and they got, thankfully nobody was hurt. But I literally shiver. I have goosebumps right now thinking about that poor mother with her kids, huddled up in a corner somewhere in that house when that happened. So it was a very serious event. It happened super fast. Really no warning. I mean, it was just like, oh, severe thunderstorms, right? You get those all the time. You get the weather alerts. And I mean, I was just going along my day like nobody's business. And really, it's been a lot of work. Last week I worked about 80 hours last week so I could take my daughter this week down to Pensacola to drop her off for school. And I'm still working, I think, from 5 o'clock in the morning till 8 p.m., just answering phone calls, coordinating contractors, and all of that. But
So that's it. That's really what my question is
yeah,
about. So yeah, there's a lot of work. So what do you do first? I mean, you check in with your tenants, you make sure they're okay. So who do you call insurance wise, and what are you finding out that you didn't realize wasn't in your policy to be covered?
sure, yeah. I think the first thing that, especially for a group like this, the first thing to do is pray. The first thing to do is get on your knees and just be like, you know what, God, like I need help, I need wisdom. This is like a daily thing for us. And it should be anyways, but I think I have to acknowledge that at the very beginning, in the very forefront. I wrote down some things not to do, Wendy.
Okay.
Um, don't whine and complain. Don't blame others. This is what's happening right now in all of our local Facebook groups. They want to blame everybody else and blame the governor and the mayors and NIPSCO, and they want to blame everybody else for everything that's going on. And it's not useful. It's not helpful. Don't pout and feel sorry for yourself. Don't do nothing. There's a lot of people that are just doing nothing. You have to do something. And then also don't expect others to save you. We're seeing a lot of that, and I'm sure you guys have all been there. And honestly, like I think we all fall into those traps, right? We all fall into that. I want to blame somebody else. I want to get upset. I want to get angry. But I think this is true for anything that happens in our life, right? We get into a bad deal, and what do we want to do? We want to whine and complain. We want to hide. We want to do nothing. We want to blame others. And if we have bad deals, and we've all been there, if you guys have done enough deals, you've had a bad deal. The number one thing you can do is, hey, admit what's going on. Like, just admit it. Maybe you made a mistake. Maybe whatever had happened, maybe you didn't, but admit what's going on, face it, and then move on, from there. As far as you're talking about the specifics about these storms, what we've done is, so we have a software called Buildium. We got on right away, started communicating with our tenants. We can send out mass blasts to them. And we told them, hey, if you have damage, please report it to us. If there's NIPSCO down poles, please report it to NIPSCO. And then we actually hired 2 extra guys, and another person's coming next week to help with cleanup and different things. But we're going out to every single property. I mean, it doesn't matter that there's a lot of properties, but we're going out to every single property and assessing. Right now, we have 120 on our list of damaged properties that we have work orders on now. We have over 70 houses that had trees on them. I think we've cleaned up about 40 or 50 of them already. So we are working through that as fast as we possibly can. I know 4 or 5 are happening today. And as far as insurance goes, so let me get to your insurance question. So a couple things I know, because I'm a general contractor and I have worked with insurance companies even before this whole thing. The best thing to do if you have to have a claim is, number one, get the adjuster out. Call the insurance, do what you need to do, take your pictures, do what they tell you to do. But let the adjuster come out. Tell them that you're working with a general contractor. Why do you tell them that you're working with a general contractor? Because then they're going to know somebody else is coming behind the adjuster, and it's going to make the adjuster be a little bit more attentive to what he is writing up. Because the general contractor is going to come behind, and the general contractor is going to find a bunch of things. And you also have to understand the adjuster is there mostly not to protect you and not to help you get your house back in order, but to protect the insurance company. So make sure that and then obviously this is something that we should all go back to all of our policies and make sure that we understand what we have in the policy. The other thing a general contractor can do is they can add their 10% and 10% fees, and most people don't know that, which actually makes your claim get bigger, and can help you in the long run. But the one thing that I think is a mistake, a lot of people will follow the insurance's direction and they'll say, oh, get your general contractor to get you a quote. Don't do that. You want the adjuster's quote first, because what the adjuster is banking on is that the general contractor is going to miss a bunch of items. And then guess what? They're not going to include those in their item. So you want the adjuster's quote first, and then you want to be able to add on to that. So I have successfully made claims go from like 30,000 to 80,000 using this exact, not in this storm, but like in previous losses from different things that I've worked with people over the years. There is some chiming in here about renters insurance and all of that. Yes, we do require all of our tenants to have renters insurance. Now, I cannot require them to have a specific kind of renters insurance. And some of these have good renters insurance, and some of the people don't have good renters insurance. We are starting to promote specific plans that cost a little bit more, that would put them in a hotel in an instance like this. But in Indiana, it is not my responsibility to put them in a hotel, although most of the renters think that I should be putting them in a hotel because they don't have power. And I'm like, I don't have power. I'm in my house. I don't know why you think you have a right to be put in a hotel. The other thing too about adjuster and your policy. So what we've learned through this is that most trees are not covered on your policy. Just so you know, most fences are actually not covered on your policy. The only way they're going to cover a tree is if it is on a house, if it is causing like a damage, if it's something that has that is attached to a structure that they're claiming that they're covering for you. So they're covering your buildings and your structures. What I don't understand is why it's not a liability, because like somebody trips and falls and gets hurt, with a downed tree. Like that's the piece I don't understand, why they wouldn't want those things removed right away from properties. But so if it's just a fallen tree and it just plopped in the middle of the yard, which we have hundreds of those at our properties, then, and honestly, even if there's like 3 down trees, one's on the house and 2's not, they'll cover the one that's on the house. They're not going to cover the removal of the other 2 trees. So,
Well, you also mentioned exterior, yeah, other buildings. If you put a new building in, you better let them know. Because
oh, sure. Yep.
they won't cover that. Here's another thing that
Mhm.
I thought was really interesting. When we had this hail damage, our policy, and it's an auto owner's policy, because I'm gonna tell on them. So it's called Auto Owners as the company. They sent out, you know how they every year they send you these updates of what your policy will and will not cover? You
And your
better read
exclusions?
those.
Yes.
Read
Yes.
those because they put a new thing in that if the roof is damaged and it's just marred or almost bad, they don't cover it. They don't cover it. I have an aluminum roof on one of my houses, and I mean, it is destroyed by the hail, dots all over. It looks like a golf ball. They won't cover not one bit of it because
Hmm.
they said it was cosmetic. So
Hmm.
they change stuff like that all the time, and you need to be aware of those things because they
Yeah.
secretly slip that into you.
Yeah, no, and that was
Hey,
going to get to that too. So please, 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 like look at your exclusions. They are slipping in so many sneaky exclusions. So the trees is kind of something I haven't heard that, Wendy. So most of the adjusters that we've already talked to have literally covered almost every roof. We've had an easy time getting the exteriors covered. So roofs, siding damage, soffit fascia, gutters. They're actually helping us point out some of those things, honestly, that we didn't even, our guys out there maybe didn't see.
Right,
So we're
right.
having
hey,
an easier time getting those things covered. Um,
hey,
what
Tom.
else? But the other thing that we're learning is water damage from like sump pumps not running because now you don't have electricity, right?
Oh,
So that's another, you have to have like an extra rider, and then it's like you have to have a rider on a rider or something like that with this water backup. They're not counting it for some reason. I still have not been able to dig into that as much as I would like to. But because I know I talked about this with my agent from my own personal house, I'm like, make sure I have the sump pump backup because I always want to make sure that if that's a problem, it's a problem, and we get it taken care of.
Hey,
Um,
Tom.
yes, sir.
Hey, so I know down here when we had storms, some of the insurance companies, if you have a tree on a house, they will literally come cut the tree that's on the house and they'll take that part off and leave the rest in the yard. Have you seen that one?
Well, that's kind of what they're saying. They're basically saying the insurance will cover, like you have to get the tree off the yard. So like our tree companies are just going out and but like they're actually making our tree companies separate the bid or separate the thing. This is the one that's on the house, and these are the ones that because the insurance is not giving you credit for the ones on the yard, if
I
that
know
makes
my tree guy here went up there for 3 weeks to work because I asked him to come do a job. He goes, I'm up in Northwest Indiana. So well, if I know some people that need help, I'll
Oh
send them
man, you
your
need to
way.
connect with me because I need a couple more
Oh, you
guys.
need to go. Okay, I'll hook you up. I'll send you
Please
guys
do
a
that.
group text right now.
What else? So trees, something else about trees. Um, this is something that I've kind of reminded myself about from this storm, but it's solidified with me now, is if a tree from a neighbor falls and hits your house, anything that's in your yard is your responsibility. It is not their responsibility whatsoever. It doesn't even matter if it's just on the other side of the fence line. It is 100% your responsibility. So what's in your yard is now vice versa. If your tree hits your neighbor's house, it is not your responsibility, and they will not have a good time in court trying to sue you over something like that unless they have written you a letter saying that they think it's rotten and that you need to get rid of it or whatever. Like basically, they have to have written proof that they have notified you. Now, also, if that means if a tree's leaning in your property, you have every right to cut whatever is in whatever is leaning over your property. as well. So there's been some things I've kind of learned through this from the insurance perspective as well. But those are the things that I would say as far as the insurance goes, Wendy, that I think from this storm we've solidified and we've learned, and we are just working our tails off and trying to get through this. We will get through it.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I wonder if there are any insurance people that are on here, but I also wanted to talk
Robert
to,
Kelly.
yeah, that's right. I did see him pop on. I
He's like,
also
no, he's like, get me out of here.
I also wanted Ken Lacey, he said he's still experiencing or seeing issues in North Carolina from New Bern, North Carolina from 2018 hurricane that happened. So Ken, give us a little insight of what you're seeing. And Tom, what you eating? That looks good, buddy. Protein yogurt. That's the way to go. So Ken, what's your thought?
So it's probably long in your memory banks about the neighborhood where we live. Fairfield Harbor, gated community. And although it's not a senior living area, there's a lot of seniors in the area. And we're seeing a lot of houses on the market. I don't think it's for anything other than people are passing away. But for those that have two-story houses, this is sort of an interesting thing. So when Florence flooded the downstairs of houses, and we have a one-story, so we're so really blessed that we've got a one-story. The people that have two-story houses didn't rehab the second floor, so they have all these awesomely rehabbed first floors, and they've got these 45-year-old second floors and staircases that now are coming back to haunt them when they want to try to sell the house. And so there was a developer that right around 2021 during COVID came in and snapped up hundreds of the vacant lots. So now there's a lot of new build in our neighborhood. And to Tom's point about new builds versus rehabbing, I feel like there's a lot of value in that. Now we had the blessing that we rehabbed before COVID, which was good. But I think there's opportunity certainly in our area, and I think we're a little bit more sheltered. To Tom Olson's point about he's got loans in North Carolina and Virginia. I think New Bern may be a little more sheltered than a lot of North Carolina. But relative to sump pumps, I had a question for you, Tom. How valuable is a whole house electric generator to situations where sump pumps are going to be the death of you if they don't work? We installed a whole house electric generator, and we have loved it whenever we have power outages.
Yep, definitely a storm like this makes you rethink about everything. I'm actually considering going complete solar, which never made sense to me financially, but with NIPSCO's tripling of their rate hikes over the last year, and my average bill in my house is $600 a month now for gas and electric, and so it used to be it would take 20 years to recoup my investment in a solar, and now it's looking like 10 years. And with a 20-year warranty, that sure looks like the way to go. And then I wouldn't be out of power either. I've lived in houses, Ken, that had those big generators, backups, and we had 3 storms while I was in that house, and 2 times that it didn't work. So I kind of have a bad experience with those whole house backup generators. We've been using a generator since day 2 at our house. So having some kind of a backup system and backup plan is something that obviously more people got to be considerate of. You people that are like living on coasts and close and get big storms like this every year, you guys are probably more attuned to that. But us in the Midwest, we're not really used to this. And we've never had storms like this ever. We've had 3 tornadoes this year and this thing. And I've lived there for 40 years and we've never experienced anything like this. I think the whole jet stream system has just moved up a little bit this year or something. But I think this is supposed to be in Oklahoma.
Tom, we had a derecho in Virginia about 15 years ago, and it was the same thing. It was this massive wall of red, and I was back, back then I was in the mobile phone business, cell business, and my phone was blowing up with cell sites going down across West Virginia, and literally I grabbed the dog, a flashlight. Amy was at VBS at the church. I'm in my closet under the stairs in a two-story house. I never felt a house shake like that. You talk about being prayed up. So there, and afterwards, no power for 4 days. I mean, can't get gas. There's lines. I mean, it got bad. It gets
Yeah.
bad.
The
I
first
mean,
2 days, I think there was like 2 gas stations open in our entire county. It was a mess.
yeah. So if you hear the words derecho, you need to
Well, we
like
didn't even know it
take
was that
cover.
until after
I
it came
know.
through. It just
Right. You
literally
don't know until after the
started
fact.
right at the border of Illinois and Indiana. Like Illinois didn't get hit near as bad as we did. It's
Mm.
just
Yeah, all my cousins in St. John and over that way, they got it pretty bad.
Yeah, it's been crazy the way the weather has been um, getting more and more rough in places that it usually isn't. It's really, really, really strange. Um, so the only way to battle this is, look for dead trees. Look for trees that are in trouble around your house, for
I don't
one
know,
thing.
Wendy. People say that a lot, but I've seen dead trees that completely survived this, and I saw completely healthy trees that were completely uprooted. I'm just I don't know. I think it's just the way that it came through, and I
But but your insurance is what's really going to help you out, is having the right insurance in place. And we all try to get the best price we can. Of course, you should do that. But having better coverage is way more important. And I wish there was an insurance person on here that could talk. Go ahead, Judy.
So, on the flip side of all of this, we have a detached garage that has needed a roof. It was $7,000. We didn't have the cash to pay for it, refused to go into debt or take out money from HELOC. Been praying for provision, had a tree come down. We've lived here 22 years. We've never had a tree come down that hit our property. It missed my son's truck, my son's boat, and my other son's zero turn in the garage, but took out enough to have to replace half the garage and the entire roof. So there can be an upside to a storm coming through. So just to share as a testimony, that it can be a good thing.
That's awesome. That's
there was a
awesome.
lot of kids praying not to have to go to school the first week of school, I think, in our area.
Yeah.
Well, Tom Nardone makes a living on hurricanes, wiping out bad mobile homes and picking up lots cheap, right?
I have
Yeah.
never, with Tom Nardone's like statement that I've heard from him say several times is like every couple years Florida has a cleansing. I've never
Yeah.
understood that,
Yes.
in my area.
Yep.
That's funny. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, Wendy, a couple years ago, we had a rental property that was just a couple of days away from actually going on the market. And we had a contractor that we had picked up from an REI, and he really wasn't a contractor. He was more of a handyman. And he's the one that put the plumbing in under the sink in the kitchen. He installed it incorrectly, and there were 2 inches of water in the condo, and it had been there for at least 24 hours. So my wife went over there, saw it. We had to shut off the water, and when we got the auto owners people involved, they came out and they measured everything. And here's the point that I wanted to make, is that they measure everything and they measured it incorrectly. I have a friend of mine, Nick, that's a GC. He came over and looked at what they had given me as to how amount of money they were going to give me as a result of the flood thing, and said the way that they measure the countertop is incorrect. They've shorted you X number of feet or whatever. And he had some other points in there. So it's good to have somebody, maybe they're not going to do the work, but it's good to have somebody check it. The other thing is that the insurance company asked me what caused this. And I said, well, there was a leak under the sink, and they wanted to talk to the person who had installed it, and that guy evaporated. So when we got back with them and said, hey, we got to talk to you about what happened at the condo, he went radio silent. So I would say getting somebody that's a legitimate contractor that's bonded and insured to do work in your properties makes sense, because then I could have given them the name. That person would have had insurance, and it wouldn't have gone on my total insurance claim. It might have gone on theirs, or it would be a split or something. I don't know how insurance works, but just something to think about.
That's good stuff. And I hope you feel better. He just had cataract surgery.
I do. There,
yeah,
right
I
there.
thought you were just winking at me.
No, not yet.
Awesome. Thank you. Go ahead, Judy. And then I'm going to get Robert Kelly to talk. So don't go anywhere, Robert.
Sorry, I need to just put my hand down. Oh, wrong
Oh.
Judy. Wrong Judy.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay. So Robert Kelly, don't hide on me.
Hi there.
Am I on?
There you go, Robert.
Where's Judy? Judy's back.
Here I am, and this is pretty trivial, but you have to kind of put this weather thing in perspective, because one place is having terrible weather, another place is having an unbelievable great weather. For example, Tom, you're over there in Northwest Indiana. I'm over here in Northeast Ohio, and our winters have been so mild in the last 20 years compared to what they were like when I was a kid. I mean, we get one big snowstorm now, and everybody's like, "Oh my goodness!" But that used to be a regular thing. Mm-hmm. So you got to put it in perspective. I bet you don't have another storm like that in Northwest Indiana for the next 50 years.
I sure hope so, Judy.
Let's hope not, right? All right. Go ahead, Rob.
No, I just want to say, I'm sorry, it's Missy. I just want to say one thing. Yesterday in Long Island in New York, we had a tornado hit, and we have not, I don't think we've ever had tornadoes in Long Island. And our only saving grace was that the only damage it caused was at a beach club, because the tornado stayed mostly on the beach. It could have been thousands of times worse had that even gone maybe half a mile inland. It was crazy. So now I can only imagine that insurance companies are probably going to hit the Long Island area in New York with now requiring some separate tornado insurance or something like that. Insurance prices are just going to skyrocket. It was nuts.
Wow. That must have started as a water spout if it stayed on the beach like that. That's scary. Wow.
Yep.
All right, Robert.
Good morning, everybody. Tom, you mentioned something earlier about dead trees surviving and the live trees. I actually have exactly that scenario. And we've actually had some pretty interesting weather patterns here lately too, of course. But a couple of years ago, we had one big storm come through, and I heard the big thud and went out back, and one of my trees in the back part of my property fell down right next to a dead tree that's been dead for God knows how long. And then a year or so later, we had another storm, and I heard another thud, and it was a tree right next to the live tree, and that dead tree is still standing after all these years. And so, yeah, it's pretty funny how that happens. Thank God none of that is anywhere near any of my property stuff, so I'm not too worried about it. But I did make a comment earlier, if you're a landlord or a property manager, as part of your diligence in looking at the property, make sure that you are limbing all of your trees, getting them clear of the house as best you can. And also that includes the leaning one. One of the first properties that I bought up there with Tom, there was a tree in the backyard that was actually on a church property that was leaning over towards that house. And we ended up taking it down because of something that probably would have happened today. That tree probably would have fallen over onto my house. So we took it down and negotiated with the property owner that they finally ended up, cutting a check back for half of the removal. But yeah, the insurance companies, sometimes I think I just want to go back to flipping burgers, or not back to, but start flipping burgers at McDonald's, because it is not fun environment right now for me as an agent, because they are just looking at every possible way it's true to not pay a claim.
So Robert, do umbrella policies help? Like if you have insurance on all your rentals Is there an umbrella policy that you can get that would cover things that are over and above the normal stuff that would cover
Generally
them as a
speaking,
blanket?
generally speaking, an umbrella policy is going to cover personal injury, stuff like that. I have never really looked at an umbrella policy because you're on an umbrella policy, you're looking to try.
Increase your limit, basically.
Yeah, well, you're increasing your limit. What's happening is, and it happens most of the time, it follows the vehicle policy. Okay, it's off of the vehicle limits because, and that's, you have to have a certain amount of vehicle limits to have an umbrella policy in the first place. And what happens a lot of times is because vehicle accidents can get so costly with either damage to other vehicles and or personal injuries that a lot of times can exceed the value of the vehicle's policy, 250, 500. You know, if somebody has a lifetime injury, you know, you're going to blow out that dollar value real quickly. So the umbrella there is there for, and I'll just call it out as low hanging fruit for the attorneys. If they see you have an umbrella policy, you know, they'll hit that umbrella policy for whatever value they can get out of it. And for the most part, they'll leave you alone once they get through that, because it's low hanging fruit, and that, you know, it's something that a lot of people will settle on. You got $1 million, $2 million umbrella policy. I have never actually, or, you know, the same thing would happen if, you know, you had a dog bite on your thing, but I've never had one come as like in weather related, you know, or like the whole scenario where your tree falls on somebody else's house. Generally speaking, your homeowner's landlord policies will cover that, you know, in with their limits, and not normally get, you know, unless there's some super sort of negligence involved. I wouldn't think that the umbrella would actually get involved in that.
Okay, so is it true, because this has been brought up a couple times, that every time you make any kind of a claim, your insurance is going up, period?
Well, that's one of the things that I would also caution you about is have an agent that you can speak to, these online policies. Because once you call that online policy, or once you call that carrier direct, there's a claim. It doesn't matter whether it ever gets filed or not. And I mean, that follows with a windshield chip, you know, and things like that. Even if that, you know, like comprehensive claims on your auto don't necessarily count on your thing, but if you get 4, 5, or 6 of them, they're going to look at you with crossed eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So every time you call that carrier, be mindful of what you're saying, because it's going to be a claim. Years ago, I called because I had a toilet overflow, and it ended up costing us about $500, and I had $1,000 deductible, but that counted as a claim. I never even filed a claim, and so it counted as a claim, and I carried that on my record for like 5 years as a claim before it finally washed off. So be very careful. Have a relationship with your agent. Have an actual agent that you call directly before you get the carrier involved, and assess the situation as best you can. And in our circumstance with Tom right now up there, you know, we're obviously going to blow through, you know, the deductible that I have. So that's, you know, whatever it's going to be. So I'm not going to be overly concerned about it. But I mean, even if you got I got a $2,500 deductible, something like that. If you got a $5,000 deductible, take a look at it long term, or not but if you got a $4,000 or $5,000 claim, take a look at it long term, because your premiums are going to go up, and or they're going to drop you. And I mean, that's just the reality of the situation right now. 30 years with one particular carrier, and you have one single claim, and you know, all of a sudden you're dropped. I mean, Florida was notorious for that, and that's one of the reasons why they had to go to that state insurance for so long. And all the carriers left the state. So it's not a great situation, you know, right now in the insurance business.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. I really, gosh, we could probably go on for hours, but I got a meeting I got to get to. Yeah,
Wendy,
Tom, and I want you to close us in prayer too.
I appreciate that. So the other thing to look at is what kind of coverage you have to begin with. Do you have replacement cost or do you have actual
Right.
cash value cost? So
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
actual cash value is going to give you a lot higher. They're going to change your deductible depending on what kind of a loss it is. Just it's a weird little makeup with that they have there. And the replacement cost. And then the other thing you need to know is you can use whoever contractor you want to. You
Correct.
and if you have replacement cost or actual cash value and it costs more to get it fixed than they're giving you, you can submit those receipts and get more money. So don't ever accept their like first check and think that that's all you can get. Now, if you have a contractor fighting for you on the front end, like myself and like which I will go out and fight for all of our owners to get as much money as we can in the front end, so I don't have to go fight them on the back end. But if like they will cover all of that. So just not minus your deductible or minus whatever they think is excluded from, from the claim. So just make sure you know that because I think knowledge in this is power. To add to the conspiracies out there, guys, and I'm not really one of those conspiracy guys, but I think it's really interesting. We were starting to see these little things pop up like 6, 8, 9 months ago that like people weren't covering us in our area and they said wind speeds. And I'm like, we've never had wind speeds in our area of any, we've never had claims like this in our area. So I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna throw that out there. And then I think to Robert's point, so I'm thinking somehow these insurance companies knew that there was wind speeds that were potential in this area and we didn't know. Maybe Robert can explain that, sir. But
Got a lot of ways to figure out how to put some to it. That's
somebody's making the weather, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, Robert kind of brought this up, but also check our deductibles. If you're only going to have a $5,000 claim, it's really probably not worth going through insurance and the headache that will have. Know what your deductible is.
And it's a tax deductible expense.
Right. It is. And you also make a good point in your comment there. Ordinance and law coverage brings you back to current code.
That's Thomas Covington. And Thomas, I want you to email me. I'd love to have you get on. We'll have an insurance talk.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because that's a big plus too. That's a big fight.
And this is another reason why
we deal with a lot of older homes.
Make sure you hire a contractor that knows what they're doing when you're repairing these things. So
hey, Tom Covington, I see you now.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
I had something else, Wendy, but it must have not been that important because I didn't.
Well, what is it?
I didn't write it down, so I don't remember what it was. So
okay.
But I appreciate you having me on, Wendy. I want to remind everybody, if you haven't gotten your tickets yet for the Gary Dealmaker, October 1, 2, 3, love to have you guys out. Wendy will be there. A couple other people that are on this will be there. Rick Bressler is one of our sponsors as well. He'll be there. I've got some really good people. Bill Cook's going to be there speaking with us this year. And I've got a cost segregation guy, one of John Heyer's cost segregation guys that are speaking. It's going to be a good event like it always is. I don't have a lot of time to market this year because I'm going to be working in construction for the next month. So you guys could help me with that. I would appreciate that. So,
of course, if you'll close us in prayer, that would be great.
Awesome. Dear Father, thank you so much for this day, Lord. Thank you for Tom's message this morning.
Yes.
Kind of thought he was going to steal my thunder of my opening speech for the Gary Dealmaker here with be a conduit, not a bucket. And Lord, that the greatest bucket that ever lived, Solomon. I just think about that, Lord. I think about the man that like had all the wisdom in the world. He had God given him everything he ever wanted, but he lived his entire life as a bucket. He lived his life for himself. He had women, he had money, he had extreme power like this world has never seen. I believe that his wealth exceeded what Elon Musk's is today. I believe his power exceeded what any powerful president or powerful king has ever had, Lord. And at the end of his life, he said, vanity is vanity, Lord. I pray that you'll help us not to live our lives for ourselves, not to live our lives as a bucket, Lord, to be a conduit, to take whatever you've given us, Lord, to have that silent prayer every day of God, give me not so I can have, but so I can give. I pray you'll help us to live our lives that way. I pray that you'll help us to work our businesses that way. And I pray we'll give you all the praise and glory. We sure love you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Listen, you guys have an incredible week. And I believe next week is we're going to be live, Dealmaker Queen City with Sunrisers online as well next Friday. We look forward to seeing you guys. Thanks so much. Thanks for all the help. Bye.